took it back and I improved it even more. I really liked your notes, and especially I saw your version of the animation. The first one that you did too. I was like, oh, I can see that next scene where you have just a little bit of like linger to show the follow through on the spoon.
Um, well, for what it's worth, you were the first person to speak on stream. So, welcome everyone to Animation Lab. This is week 10, where we're going to be talking about exaggeration. But before we get to that, we're going to be doing a brief detour and talk a little bit about ToonCamp. ToonCamp is a community of animators and artists in general, focused on helping you go from idea to finished project. We have some free classes, events, and workshops, and none of which currently are limited to supporting members, at least here. ToonCamp is part of Skill Camp, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides free and low-cost classes to help you master life skills to reach your life goals. I'm going to have to request that Kim, I believe, mute themselves for a little bit. Is that okay? Okay, that's how it has to be done. That's how it'll be done. New classes will be coming soon, hopefully, for free and supporting members. And you may drop by the new servers and say hi. The servers are the ones listed over there on the side. What's new? This is in fact not what's new, but I'm going to bring this over here. This is what's new. There's going to be multiple classes on ScriptCamp and WordCamp, the two primary servers currently of SkillCamp. ScriptCamp focusing on writing scripts and screenwriting, and WordCamp focusing on novels and short story and literature writing, basically. So have a look at it. Plots, subplots, protagonists, pitching movie ideas, editing, first pages, outlining novels, all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to also mention that there's stuff happening in CodeCamp, because I know it is. And it's the Python bootcamp, which, well, it definitely, we've passed November 20th, but I believe it's still going on, and it's quite interesting. So how can you help SkillCamp? Donate and become a supporting member, volunteer if you know a skill or language you'd like to teach, and tell your friends about the community. So, back to Animation Lab. Quick questions. How did last week go? Did you do any experiments? Did you do the exercises? We're going to be looking at them. And any particular difficulties? And did you have any difficulties using the animation software? I mean, by this point you probably don't, because it's been quite a while. But and difficulties animating do definitely happen. And I believe Mesh brought us 2 short clips from other movies and from animated movies. So I give you the floor. Please don't speak over each other. And feel free to talk a little bit about this week, and in this case last week as well, if anyone wants to volunteer.
I'll go. I did my first animation paper project. Yeah, and oh my goodness, it's so challenging because it takes so much time, but it was fun. So we'll see.
Oh crap! Yeah, I'm sorry. This reaction was because Joel just reminded me that I need to start the event, and the event is wrong. Oh boy, I forgot to change this. Fine. Y'all know this is going to be about exaggeration, even though it says it's appeal over there at the top. So yeah, if you'd like to share with us the exercise that you made, that would also be really cool. Thank you, Joel.
All right.
Feel free to post it. I don't know which exercise you did, but feel free to post it on the forum called 10-second clips under the thread week 9 exercises. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. So what about you? Mesh, Vintage, also welcome, Kim. Okay, Mesh and Vintage.
Yeah,
so you have the floor.
oh, I mean, you could go vintage if you had to. I was just gonna say, well, yeah. I was just gonna say this. Yeah, this was a interesting exercise, I guess, to kind of think through a lot of the things we learned in the previous weeks, and yeah, just the idea of having two shots, you know, like yeah, just I guess yeah, just getting into the storytelling part of it, and uh, yeah, and yeah, like you shared with us last week, the Kuleshov effect, and that was uh, yeah, I don't know, I guess just I didn't get as much time as I wanted to work on my piece, but yeah, just trying to think of like how to smoothly transition between two shots. I thought, you know, it was kind of an interesting exercise to think about. I'm not sure if I succeeded in what I've made so far, but yeah, it was cool.
We'll have a look at it. Also, I'm just quickly going over, just watching the exercises. You absolutely overdid this, Vintage. It looks amazing, but you absolutely overdid this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh yeah.
You did a whole short film almost.
That was from your comments from last time, and your example too is like really generated the idea, like, oh yeah, you really have to lead the eye in this staging project. So you know, a lot choppier than previous ones, but
it works really well. I have to say, it works really well. Oh, did I have some voice issues?
You or
I don't know. Discord seemed to like blink between green, yellow, and red for a moment there.
I was able to hear you the entire time.
All right, great. Well, if you
want. Oh, and I did mine in Animate this week, Adobe Animate, so it was different from the usual animation paper, and it was interesting. It helps in terms of like a lot of like shapes and stuff like that. Sometimes it's a little annoying because it's more vector, but it also can help with some cleaner lines and stuff. But
all right, that was definitely very good. Definitely very good. The only shot that's not like as good as as all the others is the last one, and it's a purely technical aspect, really. Everything is really, really clean. Really good stuff. Also, we have a new person joining us. It's Mista. Welcome. If you want to talk a little bit about yourself, feel free to. We're a pretty small group, so it's not an issue.
I don't know. I am a bit surprised because I used it to be in the script camp, like when it started, and I stopped by a year because of my job, and now I come back and I see that exists one of animation, and I was super excited. And I don't believe it, like you're so big now, have the creator, the film in the world, the design camp. I am shocked. And I didn't know this exercise that we have every week. I am seeing this now here, and maybe I'm gonna do something for the next week. And thanks.
All right, great. And no, my Discord is definitely weirding out. Can you hear me clearly, everyone?
I got a little bit robotic, but we can still hear you.
Yeah, okay. Alright, let me get Low Poly Princess's clip as well. Cube. You did that, Cube. Alright. So, let's go through the shorts. the clips. Let's try as much as possible, especially the two clips, Pantheon and Valorant. Let's try to make them like 5 minutes. The other ones we can probably extend a little bit more if need be.
Oh yeah, you don't need to spend a whole lot of time on them. Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Alright, so let's start with meshes. I believe I already had it open. So here it is. Let's take a look at this. So I believe this was exercise 1, pressing the button and waiting for the elevator. I see it's a similar take to what to what Vintage did. I actually quite like it. Like, you did a similar, like,
Yeah.
oh, doors open. Oh no, I need to run now.
Yeah, I saw vintages. I was like, oh, should I change mine now? But like, yeah, I just kept it. But yeah, I guess we had a similar idea there. But yeah.
All right, let me take a quick look at this. Next time, try to just make the lines a bit clearer of the background. Like, I know it's a little rough because you have like the character in there and it would be overlapping with it, but it's just like a box. So like, it's a little difficult to read what's happening, is what I'm saying. And that's like not
Yeah.
because the drawing is bad or anything. It's
Yeah,
just
one second. Give your connection just a moment. It went very robotic there.
yeah. For some reason it's happening today. No, but the stream's fine. I hope the stream's fine. So yeah, I was just saying, in this shot, try to make the background a little clearer, just for clarity, just so we know what's happening. You know, it's like we see what he's doing, but it's hard to like see the things he's doing. Like, he's clicking the button, but like, where's the button? You know, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. It's a little
That's what I'm just saying.
faint.
Just make the lines a bit darker.
Yeah.
That's fine. As for the staging specifically, imagining the frame. I actually think this works. You keep the center, the focus always more or less in the center. As in, like, he's looking anxious and he's looking to the side and whatever. Like, he's first looking at the left, and he looks at the right as he presses the button. And he moves back, but he's still looking at the right. And then the camera flips. The only thing I think I'd do is I would probably... So let me just get Epic Pen here real quick. Or the only thing that I could consider that could improve this in terms of staging. Come on, Epic Pen. Where are you? There you are. So you have elevator wall here, button panel, and the elevators, right? Something like this. And you have the character here. He does the thing. He looks to the side. He looks to the other side. You have one camera that's like here first, and then you have another one that's like dead in front of him, right?
Yeah.
The only thing I do is probably something like this for the second camera. And this is a kind of thing in cinema. Well, it's a thing that came from theater, I'm pretty sure. But it's also in cinema where doing a shot reverse shot like this, well, it's not, you didn't do it as dramatically. It's not like a complete opposite. But it's an easy way to like sort of lose location. If you're doing it like this, you're still going to see him looking over here and then turning over to the elevator doors and like the elevator opening. And you're still going to get that same rapport between the different shots. and you're going to like keep the position of the camera on one side only instead of crossing the subject, you know? Which ideally you want to try to avoid. Or rather, it's one of those conventions that of course you can break, and there are directors that break it very effectively, but usually if you don't have to, you probably don't want to. Or like if you don't have a very good reason to, you probably don't want to. So it would just like change the angle of the head a little bit. You wouldn't actually see a lot more because the backgrounds are very... Well, there are no backgrounds. Which, I mean, exercise. There doesn't have to be. But if there were, then you'd be sharing a bit of background with something like this, you know? You'd get a bit of sharing, you'd get contextualization of where things are happening. It just makes it for a slightly better transition than going pretty much opposite to the camera. And if you're thinking, for example, about shot reverse shot conversations that sometimes happen of two people, usually you're shooting something like this and something like this. It is indeed crossing from one side to the other, but this kind of conversation is a different convention that kind of stands over it. And you place one person on one side of the frame, the other person on the other. It's a different kind of staging, it's a different kind of setting. It's a different kind of I'm just remembering the word in Portuguese right now. Blocking. Pretty sure it's blocking. That does kind of go against this, but also kind of not. Because in a way you're like going from here to here. You're just rotating the camera, except the rotation also involves the thing. But like it has to do with your subject. So try not to cross your subject line. That's kind of the point.
Gotcha.
If you don't have a good reason to. That's the only thing, because you do lead the eyes fairly well. Yeah, I think it works. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think... I can't really explain. I like this motion a lot. As in, like, he goes from the left to the middle to the right. I like the way this happens. These keys are handled. Because it's very fluid. And yeah, I think this is it. Does anyone want to say anything about this real quick?
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, yeah, very similar comments about mesh really bending that 180 rule. You know, it technically works and stuff like that, but it's real close to that line.
Yeah.
But also, the one thing that could help with this scene, and you know, I couldn't see the lines at first for the elevator, so I thought the button was actually on the wall to his right. But if you move his head so he looks to the left and then he basically just looks to the right while pushing the button, if you have his face or head or eyes pointed toward the button as he's pressing it, because his head goes from left to the right side, if you just stop in the middle there and have him look at the button and then continue on to look toward the right for the rest of the time, that would help kind of, I don't know, like, I guess staging, but you know, it kind of leads the viewer. They also will look at the panel with him and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I
Definitely get what you mean. Like, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think in this case, because the movement of the head is almost functioning as secondary action, like it's conveying personality to the movement, right? It's not just pressing a button. I think this works, you know? Like, you could have a little flick, yes, to just make sure he's pressing the right button or something. But then you also come into the issue of poor dude has goggles, right? Which you can bend. It's animation. You can do whatever. But yes, yeah, I can definitely agree with Vintage there. Just a little flick to make sure he's pressing the button right. Or when he's leaning forward. When he's leaning forward here, You go straight from left to right. Have just a little moment where he's looking at the button to make sure he's pressing it right. You know?
Mm.
In the
Yeah.
turn. In the turn. I think that's it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to the next.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Vintage, for that as well. And yeah, thank you, Beatrice,
All right,
for
we're
bringing that down.
sold. We are sold. Let's move on to the elevator. From Vintage. The dude who made a short. I mean, from here on out, I got nothing against it. I think, like, I mean, the movement, there's something a little awkward about it. Like here, it's really good. I know it's just a still, but it works really well. I like the cross cuts, and then the closing of the eyes into the closing of the doors. Doing this kind of movement is very difficult, or like any kind of like front-facing movement, you know. Gets very awkward real fast. Turns out it's like supposedly the easiest thing to draw, but then it's like the hardest thing to animate. And not necessarily, but it is fairly difficult. It's very easy to be awkward. Did you get references for these?
No, not really. Mostly just kind of like use my own like hand or whatever, but
You should have recorded yourself, I think. Because like it's a technical thing. Like with more takes on this, you could absolutely you could fix the technical issues. It's definitely pretty good. Button is actually synced now to the click. Nice. The only thing that I was saying is that this to this feels a little stiff. And that's just because of the camera angles, I feel. They're both very perpendicular, you know? But it definitely does the job. I don't know how else to do it. I mean, can't tilt it to the left. You do the pressing of the button, then you do the weighting. You do a lot more than just the weighting. So yeah, I really like this zoom. This zoom into the jump cut works really well. And this also works really well. And then he falls asleep, doesn't he? Nice. Okay, no. In terms of staging, like I think there's not a lot to say in terms of staging. You really like went in like on the details and the leading of the eye, and you're always looking where you're supposed to be looking, and you see and you understand that the elevator's coming down. There's just like, as you said, as I said, you really overdid this. So, as you said, it's a little bit choppy. And yes, there are definitely some movements that are a little awkward, especially in this shot and in the very last one. But other than that, I have nothing to say in terms of staging, I don't think. Do a really good job leading the eye, preparing the actions and all that. Eventually a further step would be setting the scene, as in like emotionally and whatever. But you also kind of do that, like with the waiting and everything. Like this close-up is really interesting emotionally, you know. So yeah. Anybody want to say anything?
Yeah, I can jump in. So, yeah, I think everything is very clear, and it does effectively create tension. That was a very interesting choice. I thought, to have him like close his eyes, and then it just kind of or actually, let me watch it one more time. So he goes to black, I think, right? So yeah, it goes to black, and then the elevator opening. Yeah. So that was an interesting. So I think maybe as I was watching it, I was imagining like, what if this had, sound effects, or like kind of like some kind of sound soundscape to it, I guess. And I think so. I'm imagining when he first presses that button, I'm imagining that there would be like a like he pushes the button, it's like or something, and I'm imagining like maybe maybe you could hold a little bit longer after he pushes the button. Like he pushes the button and then he pulls his hand back, and I feel like he could just hold for a second there, and that might just create like some tension, because it's sort of like, this is like an ordinary event. He's just pushing an elevator button, but I think you've done a lot of things in here that make it more dramatic, and I think maybe that would help with what Beatrice was saying, like how it's a little stiff going from the button to where he's just waiting. Like maybe, yeah, maybe he could just kind of hold his hand near the button a little bit longer before he pulls it back. That was the only thing that like that was noticeable because it's like right at the beginning. But yeah, other than that, I think there's like some really good timing, and that I like. I like that where he backs up. It's almost kind of like I don't know. It's just kind of a funny. The timing on that I thought was really funny. Just the way he's just like back, it's like, oh, it's like that's. I guess I'm gonna take the stairs. Like it's. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, good. Yeah, good job overall. I think. Yeah, I think this was a fun exercise.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
All right.
That's good notes.
Anybody else? Or are we sold as well? In that case, I believe we are sold. Let's take a quick look at Low Poly Princess's cube. Is this the cube exercise?
It was more of a crap. What the heck? How do you use this? Let me try something exercise.
Oh, okay. So it was more like figuring out like how to create frames, how to like see onion skinning, like all those little things, right?
Yes, took forever.
You'll get used to it. Do you have a drawing tablet?
Yeah, actually I do.
All right, then that's great. You'll get used to it. It's not it won't be an issue for very long. If you want, I can dedicate like the first little bit of the animation of the practice segment, just going over the software with you.
That is so helpful. I don't want to take away from everyone else's learning experience.
No, don't worry. That part's for actually doing the exercises, so people are going to be doing their thing.
Cool. Okay.
So now we have two clips, which are the Pantheon by Richard Dubach and the Valorant clip. In the Pantheon one, let's just take a quick look at it. Is there anything in particular that you'd like us to look at, Mesh?
This just stood out to me. Just I really like that moment where she grabs the like the railing and swings around. It just feels, you can just feel the weight of that, and yeah, that was mostly what stood out to me about this clip.
All right, no, that's definitely a very like interesting little bit. When you mean when she grabs the railing, is it this moment where she does the
Yeah,
turn?
yeah, where she kind of stops her momentum, and then swings herself around to go up the stair. Like, yeah.
So besides great keyframing, obviously, and really good animation in general, also note this is animated on 2s. I know it's hard to see, but I'm clicking the button twice before the frames come around. So besides the great keyframing, there are some things happening here. First, this is actually like all being drawn, and I think this is important to note. This is the kind of stuff where you say fuck it to the foreground and you actually animate the entire action. Then obviously when you're doing cleanups and coloring, you don't have to do that, but when you're doing roughs to get the motion right, you do need to do that. So yeah, there's great keyframing, and there's a great use here. We're talking of spacing and of the spacing, where we can take a look at the heads and we can see how it just slowly, as it gets to that edge, and this goes for the entire body as well. But we'll get to the body in just a little bit, because we're going to be talking lines of action there in the body. So those are all very approx. There we go. Now it starts to accelerate again. There's one like here and here. Now it starts going up. So yeah, and we can look at it from the beginning again, where the head goes like, follows this very clear arc. There's this very clear arc of like leaning down, and there's this very clear posing as well as we go back here. These lines of action. And here, even though you can't see it, you feel it. It's like this. And that's why you need to draw everything. Because like in a few frames, it's going to feel like it's like this. Actually like continuing onto the arm. Maybe something like this. The lines of action of the body, right? The way that the action is being conveyed. And at this point, you really feel like she's super stretched. She's doing something like this, preparing for the run. And boom, there she is. So there's a couple things. So there's the posing, where first she's doing a run in this direction. And then as she's doing this turn, because she's gripping here, the entire body is going to be pulled down, which means that these lines of action that were pushed but vertical are going to slowly become more and more horizontal as they go. So when she gets into the stair, she's going to have to do this kind of movement. So clear that up. She's going to have to do this kind of movement, and that's really going to like sell on the fact. I almost nailed it. It was just a little bit earlier. It's going to like really sell on the fact that there was weight put in there. There was momentum, because the momentum carried over, and then she had to use her strength to pull her momentum back up. So it's a lot of things working in tandem, of course. There's like the great posing. There's the great secondary action on like the little body, the clothes and everything. Spacing and timing are crucial here to make this really feel erratic, like an erratic run. These lines of action are very dramatic and very exaggerated, which is really good and helps a lot in conveying the motion. And there's like all these little things working together. We looked at the timing. So even though this is the arc, right? The timing, the spacing actually like tightens up a lot over here. And it tightens up a lot over here in part due to perspective, because she's doing this. And in part because it will naturally tighten up a little bit over here, because this is where she needs to consume momentum. But because of perspective, these all get a little more bunched up as well. And all these things work in tandem to make the animation get precisely that feeling. Also, this little bit of clinging against of leaning against the floor and running on all fours, is a little delicious moment of secondary action. I said secondary action on the close, I meant follow through. This is secondary action because this is just running up the stairs, right? But because there's this turn and then there's like all the momentum and everything, the fact that she has to go on all fours really does convey to like how much in a hurry she is, like what's happening here. It conveys that there's a lot of urgency and drama here, and I think like all these little things are really well done together. Anyone else want to say anything or make a comment? If not, I know I didn't say a lot. It's kind of obvious, but I hope I kind of explored what you wanted me to, Mesh.
Yes, you did. That was I think yeah, that was an interesting point about the kind of the lines of action and the kind of the idea of consuming momentum. I thought was an interesting way of phrasing the way this, the spacing slowed down, also due to perspective. But I think it was good. It was a good way of getting a little more insight into what made that work. So yeah, thank you.
I noticed that for the past couple weeks, the clips that Mesh sent, they're kind of, even though they're all different, they have like a similar style. And I'm wondering, is this from like the same person, or does this style have like a name?
They're not from the same. Actually, maybe a couple of them are from the same person, but I think I think they're just clips that are interesting to me. I guess. I know that you mentioned that. You're right. Actually, like even though they're like different people, I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I guess I guess this is like the kind of animation I wish I could do. Maybe and so, maybe I don't know if there's a specific style there, but yeah.
That's interesting you say that, because when I see it from my level of experience, I feel like it looks like your style, like the one that you do for like daily drawings and stuff, which I really think is cool and stuff. But anyway, cool.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. And actually, before we go on to the next clip, I was actually curious. Were we going to go over Nance's clip? I don't know if there was like a reason we didn't,
Wait,
or
did
if that
she
was
post
just...
something?
She did. She didn't post it in the same.
Oh, right.
I think I put it in the wrong place, probably. Assignments?
Wait. Wait.
She made a new post for it.
No,
She called it staging.
Yeah, but that was
I don't know.
last week. That was last week. I mean, I can show it, but I think
Last week didn't happen.
What I'm saying is, I think I said everything I needed to say about that one. I mean, I can.
Oh,
show
okay,
it.
okay. My mistake. I didn't know.
But I can show it if you want it, Mash. Not Mash. Nance.
Oh yeah. No, it's not me. It's just I want to make sure. I didn't want to skip over if that was, I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird thing because of the 2 weeks gap. But regardless, this was the post. This was the... Oh crap. Let's go back. This was the video that Nance sent of the pressing of the button and waiting for the elevator. And what did I say about this? Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the things that I mentioned was the drastic change in action, which can definitely work. It just conveys that some more time has passed, right? Like doing something like this to then have the hand just on the on the hip. It doesn't convey continuity. It conveys that there's a break, right? So you're pressing the button, and then it's like, oh, this feels like a comedy sketch, you know, in a way, because it's like, oh, pressing the button so much, so much, so much. It's just like sitting back and like nothing's happening, you know, because it feels like there's been a gap between them. So if you want there to be more continuity and the shots to be more together, you want to pay attention to like how the actions intertwine and how the different things are happening.
Okay.
But what you did here, I think I mentioned it as well, maybe not, like this reminds me, like the way you draw and the way you're doing animations here reminds me a lot of at least the idea that I have of American adult animation. Stuff like well, BoJack Horseman comes to mind, in a way. Crap, what else? I mean, the kind of stuff like Rick and Morty, although that one's a little more stylized.
Yeah, it's because I don't have a drawing pad, so I just I do everything in Illustrator and bring it in. So,
but it definitely does have that interesting look to it, and I think that's definitely unique. Like, obviously, it's a struggle not to do this with a drawing pad.
yeah.
So I heavily respect that you're doing what you're doing already. But yes, in terms of the staging, it's like, so I mentioned that there were like these things, these like this thing on staging where it's like it's pressing the button so hard and then it's like stepping back and everything. There's a little break of connection. And other than that, it's like it's the technicalities, it's the timing, it's like it's everything's happening very fast.
Right.
You usually want, at least in the start and the end, like this is important, in the start and the end, you want to give the audience time to adjust to what's happening. So you want to give the audience just like a flash of time, a blink, in which they can read the entire image before starting to move things.
Right.
So the finger could be a little bit more resting in before it starts so anxiously pressing the button. And because this is a very drastic transition, that's what I was saying. It's like you go from anxiously pressing the button to anxiously waiting, right? But it feels like time has passed between them. You're probably going to want to also give some time for the audience to read this shot before you start like really anxiously tapping the feet and everything.
Right. Good point.
Because the two shots are very different, and because there's a bit of a lack of connection between them. So these are the kinds of things that you wanna pay attention to. For example, let me see if this shot has anything of that, because I believe vintage actually. Yeah, you do always give a little bit of time. All right, in this zoom, right? You go into the zoom and then it transitions right to a different thing. Obviously, this is a still image, so it's by nature going to be very still. It's always going to give time to read. But the fact that there's a jump cut directly into this, and it does work, is in part because there's a connection. Like you're zooming into the face and it jump cuts into the face. So you're expecting it, so you don't need to read everything again. You know? Yeah. And I personally do have critiques of my own thing. I think a similar thing applies here, where because the movement began in shot 1, it transitions into shot 2, and you're sort of expecting it to. So it's okay that you don't actually give that little bit of a wait, you know? In your case, because the shots are so different, let's bring that back, it's important to have like that little wait to let the audience read the images, you know?
Got it.
And then it's like technicalities, timing, spacing, like getting the arcs. Like this anxiously pressing of the button is very interesting, but like there's a lot of frames missing here in terms of like the actual movement, which very difficult to do. I don't blame you. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say that's it. I actually forgot. Does anyone else want to say anything on Nancy's?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is that for the button push here, I would do like the one button push and then pull the hand away and have it wait, and then you can go into more of the frantic ones. Just let those like play out, because then they'll show like the ding, 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 like how they use that gag with the bell on the desk in movies and
Right.
stuff.
Like it's not coming fast enough after you pushed it once, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And then
good point.
Good point.
the other thing I noticed, which makes it very, very weird for the woman standing in the back, her right shoe it looks like overlapping her left shoe, which then makes it look like she's turned in one direction, but
True,
So,
that's
yeah.
actually true.
Oh, that's right. Oh my god, I didn't even see that.
Oh no.
Well, she could be crossing her leg. I guess
No,
maybe.
no,
Oh, maybe.
that's not how crossing legs work. Oh my lord.
At first, I was trying to read it. I was like, okay, so her feet are pointed toward the elevator, but the rest of her body is twisted 180.
Yeah. She's doing a 90-degree turn. So yeah, let's just take a quick look now at the Valorant clip.
Oh, I just want to say real quick on Nance's comparing it to adult animation, I think was really made a lot of sense. That actually, I don't know, Nance. There's an old TV show from the '90s that was called Dr. Katz Professional Therapist.
Wow, I've never seen it.
Never heard of it? Okay, yeah,
No.
yeah. Dr. Katz, Katz, and the animation was so similar to this, or just the timing of the animation, and it reminded me almost exactly of some shots from that show actually, because it has very simple animation style, I guess, where it's like not many frames, but really funny show. But yeah.
I'll have to watch it. Thank you.
But anyway, that's all I had. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Alright. So, Mesh, for this clip, is there anything in particular that you want to look at?
There's just like so much going on in this clip that I just thought, like, how would you even approach, I guess, like, how would you start doing something or what would you start with when you're doing something with this many kind of different arcs and things going on all at once? Like,
Main action. So you want to start. Okay, no, this is definitely a very elaborate. Like, even though it's just a single step, there's a lot going on here. Exactly as you say, right? And before we get into like the coat and everything, because the thing is, the first thing you need to do is you need to do the body. And I think what's happening here is actually something very interesting, which is that the run cycle, as interesting as it is, it's actually fairly simple, right? The animator isn't actually doing all that much with the run. Like, obviously this is a very competent runner, or at least they appear to be so. They're very confident, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the movement itself, like, there's posing that conveys those things I mentioned, but in terms of the running itself, it's a fairly straightforward run cycle, even though it's a forward-facing run cycle, which, as I was talking with Vintage before, already ups the difficulty by like 200%, because it's very difficult to draw motion when it's coming towards you, or at least a lot more difficult. So the first thing is you need to know that, and you need to like do the motion of the run. Because what's happening that's actually giving this a lot of airy, a lot of like airy, floaty vibes, is all follow through.
Mm.
It's that the shirt is drawn or animated to feel very light, and the jacket is drawn and animated to feel very light. So what happens here is that the body goes up with the shirt, and then the shirt and the jacket linger up there for a little bit more than they should. Right? Let's take a notice at this, at that edge right there. See the one that I marked? That line?
Yes.
Because I wanna like see if my theory holds. You see the body's going down already. The body's already going down. This line's coming closer to the shirt. These are the frames in which the shirt is doing follow through, you know?
Yeah.
And now it's going to catch up. Now it's going to fall down, and boom, we're back pretty much where we started, just on the opposite side. So that's the first thing. You do a fairly simple run cycle, fairly basic one. You don't even need to change the face all that much. In this case, the face doesn't change a lot. Like, you do need to like redraw it a lot, but it doesn't change a lot.
Yeah.
And then what you're doing is you do one element that's going to be doing follow through. This is like a from looking at this looks like a very well executed and complex, but somewhat, or difficult, but somewhat simple exercise and follow through. Because once you have the run cycle, all you have to consider is how floaty do you want to make the clothes. You know, and then you do one piece of clothing, and then once that one's well animated, you do another piece of clothing, and once that's well animated, you do another piece of clothing, and once that's like, it's just a lot of layers you have to do on top of it in the rough to get the motion right. And then obviously, like, the folds and everything, that's part of draftsmanship. That's knowing how the clothes are going to fold and where things are going to happen, and getting good references for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yes, like the folds and everything, that's draftsmanship. But in terms of the movement, you have a simple run cycle with a lot of follow through applied on top of it. This in the hair is all follow through as well. Like the way that the hair is moving is all follow through. Where it's lingering up there, and then it just falls right the fuck back down, you know?
Yeah.
And it's following in rhythm with the rest of the clothes as well. And that's kind of what also clued me into the fact that this was all follow through. Because you have the run cycle, and then everything else, you just add layer upon layer, one after the other, in order to get the follow through. Obviously, you're going to need keyframes. You're going to need a few of them. You need the start one, the end one. It's actually a terrible one. What the fuck? This is a good one. This keyframe, and then a breakdown like somewhere here to get the key movement down, right? The body movement down. And then it's shirt on top, new layer, jacket on top, new layer, hair on top, new layer, pouches on top, or on the bottom in this case. It's just that on repeat until you have like all the layers of the character. It's not tremendously difficult, or rather it's not tremendously complex, but it's difficult in that it requires a lot of work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's how I would probably approach this. It's a cool article about
Gotcha.
getting details. Oh. Low Poly Princess posted something in the lab chat. You might want to look at it. Let's take a look at that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Let's see.
Primary, secondary, and tertiary shapes. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing what this is. 70-30, 70-30, 50.
Okay, yeah. I've heard of similar stuff before, actually. Yeah, interesting.
All right. No. This is definitely interesting. This is good stuff for staging. Absolutely. This usually goes by composition stuff in visual arts. Definitely very interesting. So, if anyone wants to say anything about this, feel free, now's the time. If not, we're going to be moving to the class.
Another cool clip.
Definitely.
I like the swinging of the whatever's on the belt.
Probably canisters or bullets or something. It's Valorant.
Was this done in ones on ones?
Let's see. No.
Oh, okay.
No way. No. This isn't done on ones. You can actually kind of feel the weights. Let me see what the charts are saying. I mean, some of them. This is 13, 16, 19, 23, 26. Yeah, a lot of this is on threes. Some of this is on twos, some of this is on threes for sure. Like, the start of the movement is on ones, right? So this acceleration is on ones, I think. Or on twos, and then it goes to threes. I think that's what it's doing.
All right.
All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes now. Although at this point, these are the meat and potatoes as well. I really do like this. So, for the keen eyes of you, you will notice that I switched exaggeration and appeal around. That was a last minute decision. Because the more I thought about it, the more I thought that appeal would be more of an all-encompassing thing and that exaggeration would be more of a technical thing. And that even though it applies to everything, that's less overarching than appeal in a way, so it comes before it. And here you have some examples of it. So today we're going to be talking about exaggeration in animation as one of its principles. And what is exaggeration? Exaggeration is a technique where you push your actions to add as much contrast as possible to the movement in order to make them more readable, in order to make them more emotive, and in order to make them more interesting to look at. You can often break the model while exaggerating, and that's perfectly fine. And you can exaggerate lots of things. You can exaggerate keyframes and poses, as well as breakdowns. I'm going to post a couple of videos that you should probably watch, either when we're doing when we go into the practice section, or after the class, because they're going to be better than just these images. And you can exaggerate every single one of the principles before. Spacing and timing, to accentuate the contrast between the speed, the acceleration, and deceleration. Arcs, you can make the arcs even more archy in a way. You can push them further. You can make the actions go wilder. Usually when you exaggerate arcs, you're also exaggerating breakdowns. You can exaggerate squash and stretch, make it more squashy, more stretchy. Anticipations and overshoots, exaggerating the anticipation and overshoot poses, so the action feels more intense. Follow through and overlapping action, capes and stuff like that are very good for that. But you can definitely do it with pretty much anything in terms of follow through and overlapping action. Just because this builds on all these things before, you exaggerate these things of the follow through. In terms of the secondary action, in a very similar way, you can make it more exaggerated so long as it doesn't draw away from the main action. You can push the poses, you can push the drama, you can like express more so long as it doesn't draw away from the key action, the main action. And in terms of staging, pushing composition, adding contrast, foreground, background elements, working in tandem, like all those different things, as well as leading the eye properly, or in some cases, playing around with it and not leading the eye properly. That can also be an intentional choice. So in terms of exaggeration, you can exaggerate pretty much anything, as I was saying, and exaggeration often breaks the model. If you're pushing poses, sometimes things are going to be out of whack, but usually they're going to be out of whack for a very small moment in time, and because that's a very small moment in time, your brain's going to read it as movement rather than a broken model. And we can refer back to the video that I showed way back when we're doing squash and stretch of Overwatch characters, because they have a lot of exaggeration to them. Now, there's this thing where cartooning and realism, well, exaggeration is about clarity and readability, and of course it's about style as well. So there are levels to exaggeration and there are levels to cartooning, and they're not exactly the same thing. You can exaggerate a movement, a motion, and an emotion and a pose without making it necessarily look like a cartoon. And oftentimes there's this story that's passed around of Disney way back when wanting more realism in the animation that the animators were making, and when the animators went back and redrafted something that was more proper and more realistic, then Disney would come in and say, no, that's not what I wanted, because that wasn't about making things look like photographs in film. It was about making the actions look clear and the emotions look clear and readable. And that's what exaggeration allows you to do. And then there's the practice of exaggeration, where ideally you want to push a pose, an arc, everything. You want to push it as much as possible, and then you want to dial it down as you go, and until you find your sweet spot. So you don't want to start. You want to start as exaggerated as you think you can go, and then dial it back until you get what you want. Because that's going to nail you on the readability and clarity, and then you can go into the style and make the style that you're looking for. So I'm going to pass around the video of Overwatch characters again real quick. And I'm just going to show it really because exaggeration is there a lot. Overwatch characters. Does this get me the video that I wanted? Yeah, it does. Here we go. I wanted this. This is exaggerating arcs. Same here, exaggerating in the squash and stretch, and in the poses. Like, I showed this for squash and stretch, but this goes for, like, the exaggeration's all there as well. Like, all the poses are extremely dynamic and they all convey very well what's happening. Like the floating, the throwing of the ball, the exaggerated swinging, the victory lap. Like, obviously, these are highly professional animators and artists. Like let's go back here real quick. This is a very exaggerated pose, for example. His back's completely broken. And if you were to watch this without it being in slow motion, you wouldn't read any of this as being overly cartoony. Because there's a notion of style here where they know where to exaggerate and how in order to create the fluidity of the movements that they want without going into like Disney, like old Disney and stuff. I think there's a point where the sword is like curved. There was a frame there where the sword was curved. So here we're talking about exaggeration, where previously we were talking about squash and stretch. But now with everything else that's come with these meetings and these groups, you can probably appreciate the exaggeration a bit more. So the point of exaggeration is the conveying of the emotion and the style and the story. So you want to exaggerate as much as is convenient for the story and for what you want to tell. And with that in mind, I am now going to post the 2 videos that I found very interesting in terms of exaggeration. And I'm going to stop pretending like I make these. Alan Becker in particular is very good at explaining these things. But that first one as well also proved to be very useful or very interesting. So before we get into the exercises, are there any questions about this? I know the examples were a little poor, but in a way I think that they do get the point across. I can bring this as well, because I can show this real quick. I don't want to show the entire video. I'm going to show, for example, a comparison here, where here we're pushing poses. Come on. 3 poses. They're already interesting, but you can push them further to really hammer in what they're trying to sell. This is the part of the story. I don't care about the story because I already told it. So here's saying if something's bright, make it brighter. Something's angry, make it angrier. Something's crazy, make it crazier. All those little things. It's about the reality of what you feel. And here you have 2 movements. A movement without exaggeration and one with it. And this is a comparison of how the 2 of them compare. Let's move back a little bit. Without on the left and with on the right. And you can see how much exaggeration can impact on a shot. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. Again, it has to do with the style you're going for. In one way or another, you're always going to be exaggerating because you're not going to be capturing film. And here we're talking about really long and breaking the model kind of poses that you don't actually read because they're on screen for very short amount of time. So they just read as one very expressive motion. Which were the things I was mentioning before. Oh, do we have something? Yes, exactly. This is very similar. I need to, oh my lord, how am I gonna do this? Open in browser. Please play. Here you have like this very interesting jump and like exaggerating the poses. He's like doing this dance and everything. Like keep in mind the poses are interesting, the exaggeration in the jump, anticipation of the jump. He goes really far down and he stretches up and stretches back down. There's like all this movement that's happening. The exaggeration is very interesting. Thank you, Gray, for posting this. So yes, before we get into the exercises, any questions about exaggeration? Y'all have the floor. If not, then let's proceed. So in honor of one of the clips that we had submitted last week, one of the exercises is going to be a character being hit by something. Thrown at them, hopefully. And then we have a couple others. At this point, easy and difficult are kind of not really there doing anything. But yes, the other two, a quick motion smear or a blur. So something that's going to really push the exaggeration of a movement, of something fast that needs to be even faster. You can think of like old cartoony runs. You can think of Disney movie characters appearing with 6 eyes. You can think of like all these little things that you might be interested in doing motion smear or blurs of, and the character laughing very intensely, where the intention is to exaggerate the emotion and make it as clear as possible. Of course. Now I'm going to post these to the assignments channel, and I'm going to hop in to animation paper and help Low Poly Princess with the exercise, with the using of the software. My bad, not with the exercise. May I? Crap, this is so annoying. Week 10, exaggeration exercises. Easy. Character. The rest of you may get started if you have ideas on what to do. There we go. All right. So the exercises were posted to the assignments channel, and the PowerPoint is over now. So let's open animation paper. So I'm just going to go very quickly over the software with Low Poly Princess. The rest of you may be started on the exercise. We're going to be here for 45 minutes, I think. So, you got some time to get started on the keyframes. Alright, so, Low Poly Princess. Some important things to note about navigating the software. Up here you have brushes, things you can use. So this pen brush, marker brush, and brush. And you have similar versions for eraser. So you have some kind of eraser, a perfect eraser, but that does a little bit of that's smaller, and then a more brush-like eraser. I usually just sketch on this one and then switch between these two. They're usually the ones I use the most. This goes to your pencil, this goes to your eraser, the one that you've last selected. Now, zoom, press Z, Z to zoom, Z to zoom. So Z and drag around on the tablet. It's going to zoom. H is going to move the camera or pan the screen. So H is to move the camera, or move the paper, move the sheet. R is to rotate. Now, if you've drawn something, if you've drawn a cube, let's say you did a cube, so let's just do a cube as well. Using the patented draw box method. So there's a cube. It's terrible, but it's a cube. And you have multiple ways to do this. If you press A, you'll select the entire drawing, and you can move, and you can scale it, and you can flip it in both ways. You can rotate it. You can rotate and scale, and you can move the pivot point. The pivot point is where rotation is applied and where scaling is applied from. So these are the things you can do if you move the entire drawing. Now, if you don't want to move the entire drawing, you can press L, and that's going to create a copy of whatever you select. Or you can press X, and that's going to cut whatever you select. So basically, A is you cut the entire drawing. So you do A, and you can see I'm moving the entire drawing and it's disappeared. You press Escape to leave a selection and kill the drawing. So if I want to get rid of this cube, I select it with X, and then I press Escape, and it's gone. And if you want to position it, you press Enter, and then it's positioned. And it's exactly where you wanted it. These are the things you can do, the important things you can do on one drawing, one image only. More images, Control Up creates a drawing above yours. Control Down creates a drawing below yours. So Control Up or down. These are new drawing. And here in the timeline, you have all the drawings you do. So maybe here I'm going to have a ball. And here I want to have a cube, a square. So ball, example, and square. And here, if you go to the ball drawing, you can click it. You can change for how long it stays on screen. Each little rectangle is a frame. So if you set this up to be 24 frames per second, you're going to have 3 sets of 8 frames that are going to make 1 second. This is 1 second on screen. let's just do 8 frames for each for now. Now you can also, so control up, control down, control delete to delete the drawing. So you come over here, boom. Except it's only going to delete one drawing. So you got to do it multiple times if you want to get rid of a long sequence. Control Z goes back, Control Y goes forward. Those are the same as regular commands. And now the important thing, you can have this little button right here is onion skin. You can also come here and turn it on and off. And you can customize the onion skin or the backlight, which is what it's called here. You can have multiple settings, and each one of them can go as far back as 4 frames, or as far forward as 4 frames. Next up, new layer and delete layer. These are going to be important. So this is one layer, and it goes as far down as I want it, right? This is just one layer here. Now, if I want to draw something like that example of the run cycle, I would need to do the animation of the body on one layer, which would be the first one. I'd come over here, new layer. And on the second layer, I would go and I would say, okay, so here there's going to be a triangle. And then we come down here, and this is going to be a pyramid now. And this is the layer that behaves completely separately from the previous one. And you control it as you want it. Now, say you don't like what's in this layer, you don't need it anymore. You can come over to X sheet, delete layer, and it's gone. Just have to have it selected. Okay. I think this is generally it. You can also turn on the grid. Grids are helpful because they help you see where things are going to line up. These are safety margins. They're useful to keep in mind. You don't want a lot of action happening on this area in general. You want most of the action happening within the main thing. But that's a very specific thing. And yeah, I mean, these are the basic ways of functioning with this software.
All right. Thank you.
So yeah, here are the commands. I'm just going to delete some stuff. I suggest, if you want to get started with something, just to get acquainted to the software, just do the bouncing ball. Like, it's simple enough, you know. It's simple enough, but it gets you going on like what the software can do and how you're going to be going about it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
All right. Thanks for breaking it down.
I'd say that's a good way to start. I hope that helps. If you have any other questions or problems, do feel free to mention them.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, let me take a look at the assignments. What am I going to do? Have y'all decided on what you're going to do?
Probably the character getting hit by something.
Alright, fair enough.
This might be a little ambitious, but I'm thinking of trying to do all 3 in one shot, in one thing.
Hey.
I mean, I can see combining two of them. I don't know how you're gonna do a character being hit
Character
and
laughing at heart
laughing.
speeds.
It's a
I mean,
very intense laugh.
it's a very intense laugh that's going to be interrupted by something hitting them.
Well, you may have you may be thinking what I'm thinking there. That's
It appears I am.
but we'll see. Let's see.
Also,
I'm gonna probably do a very simple character instead of. I'm gonna probably just do like a character made up of circles or something, like as opposed to using a model sheet from an actual movie or something.
I mean, that's part of the challenge. As
Um,
much as you don't have to. If you want to use something simpler, feel free to. But it is part of the challenge to animate according to a model sheet, in a way,
okay.
because
Well,
it does give you more. Um, in some ways, it gives you a little bit more on like how you will actually be working in most of the time. Even for your own projects, you're gonna have to do model sheets. And trust me, I say that as someone who's suffered intensely animating Nanachi. Nanachi is very hard. There's too many lines.
she has a lot of like floppy parts too, like the ears and stuff. Like,
Yep. It's been quite intense, but it's also been a lot of fun. I still need to think of mine.
Drawing software just stroked out.
Stroked out? It died?
As I was using it, the drawing tablet is detecting the pen, like it lights up a little brighter when I put it near it, but the motion is not transferring to the computer.
Oh wow. Ugh. That doesn't
I had
sound
this
very
thing for over a
good.
decade, so maybe.
That doesn't sound very good.
Yeah. It would be very sad if it were actually dead. This is my first and only drawing tablet.
Boy.
Can I post something in the chat that I already made that has smear frames?
I mean, I suppose you can.
So angry. I'm gonna look up some solutions later to see if I fix it. I'll just do that. Hang on. See if I can resurrect my drawing tablet.
Okay. I think I'm having an idea. there's something in the live chat. Right. Oh, I didn't even see that she was leaving. Missed for 2 minutes.
We still recording it all, or are we officially into post game?
No, we're still recording it because we're still within the 2 hours.
Ah, got it.
We're still recording because we're still within the 2 hours. In give or take 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to stop the recording. And we're going to be in the post game. As you say it. Welcome, see.
Hello.
You caught us right at the end. We are currently just finishing up the animation exercises. Well, we're starting the animation exercises for next week. And yeah, the ones for this week were based on exaggeration. So we're sort of looking to see some kind of exaggerated motion out of them. In some way, something that's expressive and pushes the poses a little bit. No, I have a better idea than this. Ah, damn, that's unfortunate.
But what is that that's hitting the what is swinging there in yours, Beatrice?
Well, I am removing it because I had a better idea.
Oh, okay.
But,
Okay.
but the intention was to just have something do a bonk. And the reaction be the exaggeration, but I think I got something better if I just think about it real good. Pink, post this in the turnarounds for me, please. Oh no. Oh no. It's Sonic. This is from Sonic the Hedgehog, correctly? If I got the if I got the series wrong, just or the source wrong, just do tell me and I'll correct it.
Nope, perfect.
Well, this is a kind of character that definitely makes it easier. At least to some extent. Also, we're going to be staying here for like 5 more minutes. And we're about to leave. I'm going to have to leave because I need to wake up quite early tomorrow. As much as I'd love to stay. So it's about time that if any one of you wants to share what you've done so far, you can. We can talk a little bit about it before we go. And if not, then we'll just quickly finish or do as much as we can and then we'll be leaving. So if anyone wants to share what they've done so far, now would be a great time.
I'll be out next week, so I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Alright. Have a good one then, Nance.
Thank you.
Correct?
Yes.
Alright. I wasn't looking, so I had to ask. Alright. Have a good one then, Nance.
Thank you.
Right, so let's just end the stream real quick. Thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's class, today's group meeting, and I hope it was valuable. And we'll see each other next week, hopefully with the exercises to show, or at least as much as possible. And I'll be finishing the example as soon as I can as well. So yeah, have a good night everyone, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you.